less than 6 months ago, I was very much questioning who I was, what I'm doing, how much longer am I going to go through bites and stings? What does the audience really want to see? Should I throw it in the towel and be like, let me find somebody else to replace me to be whoever's next?
What's going on, guys? Today I am in the offices of Brave Wilderness alongside animal and filmmaking legend Coyote Peterson. Now Coyote, you have been my personal idol since around the age of 10 years old. My dream of being a wildlife filmmaker and host just like yourself never would have come to fruition if it wasn't for the work of you and the entire Brave Wilderness team. So first of all, you don't know how much of an honor it is to be sitting here next to you.
Oh, well, it's my pleasure, honestly. You're such a sweetheart. Yeah, like for me, you know, just everyday life is everyday life. So I'm thrilled that we're getting to spend a few days together, getting to go out, catch snapping turtles, doing this interview, whatever it is that we end up creating over the next few days. For me is amazing. And it's so humbling to get to hear from you how Brave Wilderness has inspired where your career is going.
And the first thing I kind of want to ask is how crazy is it to you that I've been a fan since like the beginning of Brave Wilderness, back when it was just called Breaking Trail.
Yeah.
Like before the Brave Wilderness of today, I was watching. How does it feel that, you know, I'm not the only person like that. There are thousands, if not tens of thousands of people out there with similar stories just like myself. How does it feel that you've made that much of an impact?
It's, you know, the word I go back to is honestly, it's humbling, because I'm a pretty down-to-earth individual growing up in the middle of nowhere, Ohio, and even still living in Ohio now. I mean, I think people in Ohio are pretty rooted in reality for the most part when it comes to just the way that we approach life and business and what we want to do with our careers. But for me, when I got started, you know, I was in the exact same spot you are, and even less or so, because you've got like, what, about 30,000 subscribers on your channel now at this point. And I remember when we launched what was originally Breaking Trail that turned into Brave Wilderness as a brand and as a channel. And for us, it was the hustle, it was the game. It was like, get out there and just start doing it. And for anybody else that, I mean, because what, you're 20 years old,
20
right?
years old.
So you must have been about 10 years old when you saw Brave Wilderness for the first time. I remember being 10 years old and being infatuated with snapping turtles and wanting so badly to get out there in the wild and to try to catch these creatures. And, you know, it was the animals that drove my passion for wanting to eventually create what became this career. But it's a really bizarre feeling to now be sitting with somebody who is filming me in an interview and out working with me for the week to catch turtles, because your desire and drive to go out and do this came from our same desire and drive to go out and do this.
Yeah, it's so amazing to be here spending these few days with you creating content. So I guess the first place that I really want to dive into is the early days of Brave Wilderness.
Yeah.
So how did Brave Wilderness become what it is today? The huge brand, you know, biggest animal show on the internet, basically. How did you start out?
Hustle. Like, that's the word that I've been using a lot recently in interviews now that like Brave Wilderness is in its 10th year. Like, we turned 10 years old in September, which is crazy because you were 10 years old when you started watching Brave Wilderness, and now you're 20 years old.
Right.
So for these 10 years, I mean, it's been a consistent grind, and the grind never stops. I mean, it is always trying to hit a moving target when you are working within the digital distribution space. When we got in at a very unique time. And by in, I mean into the YouTube world. And in 2014, when the channel launched, you know, there were people that were already very successful in that digital distribution space. But keep in mind, there was not video on Facebook. There was not video on Instagram. There was no TikTok. There was no Snapchat. Netflix was like the only streaming service, and it was in its infancy for the most part. So the places that people can now go to attach their eyeballs for entertainment have just exponentially grown in a certain sense, which has got its pros and its cons. It's got pros for everyone in that now there's the opportunity for somebody like yourself to be creating content and to be able to share that with the world and have the opportunity to distribute in this digital space that allows a lot of people to find your work, appreciate your work, and become fans of your work. Where it is a bit of a struggle is that it's so saturated at this point. To get in the game, to stay in the game, and to continue to be relevant is incredibly difficult. Even for a brand like Brave Wilderness, on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly basis, we are constantly thinking about, all right, what can we do next that will keep people engaged in the Brave Wilderness channel? And then how do you continue to swell your brand and grow and grow and grow and grow? And every single day is something different.
Let's go back even further. Where did your love and fascination for animals start?
So the very first animal that I ever caught was just your basic, like, American toad. And there was this toad that in this little house that I grew up in when I was like probably 4 years old at this point, somewhere between 3 and 4. It lived in our little like drainage pipe. And I finally caught it one day, and my mom let me keep it for a couple days in a shoebox. She's like, we've got to put it back out in its natural home, but you can keep it for a couple days. It slept next to my bed. I built it like a little enclosure in this shoebox, and I was just so fascinated with this thing that was living in this drain pipe. And my mom got me books on toads, and I started going down that rabbit hole of reptiles and amphibians. And it wasn't long after that I then discovered snapping turtles. And snapping turtles became a huge love of mine because I was like, wow, here's this really cool prehistoric looking creature that lives potentially in my backyard growing up in Ohio. And it was many years before I actually saw my first snapping turtle, and even a little bit more before I caught my first snapping turtle. But it was those creatures, the reptiles and amphibians, and seemingly the very safe things that I grew up around in Ohio. Like, my mom was never worried about me being outside and running into a venomous snake or running into an apex predator. It's like the most dangerous thing I was going to come across, truthfully, was a snapping turtle. So it really helped sort of harness my infatuation with the cryptic creatures, the creepy looking creatures, the prehistoric looking creatures of our planet. And then from there, it just continued to escalate. And beyond animals, I was obviously into dinosaurs. Jurassic Park came out in 1993. I was in 5th grade at the time. That greatly changed the shape of my life and understanding how stories were told and how to entertain people. And then as I got a little bit older through that, like, the love of animals continued to be there. But I won't lie, at a certain point when I got into later years of grade school and into high school, I loved animals, but I wasn't as actively pursuing something that would be considered a passion in animals because I was playing sports, I was dating girls, I was getting my driver's license, I was doing the high school thing versus like, cool, let me play in swamps and catch turtles. But when it kind of came around full circle with getting a degree in filmmaking, which we may or may not talk about, that's where it all kind of came back together. And I was like, man, this is definitely what I was meant to do.
So, like I covered earlier, you're my personal idol. Who were your idols growing up?
I had a lot. I mean, there's a lot of different people in different fields specifically that I looked up to, from music to sports to culture to the world of animals to storytelling. And when I really narrow it down and I say, like, these three are like my DNA of influence, Steven Spielberg without question, because I was being influenced by Steven Spielberg as a storyteller since before I knew who Steven Spielberg was. Like, I used to rent Jaws on something called a VHS tape, which you probably know what that is.
I know what it is.
I've never. Have you ever even watched anything on a VHS tape?
I think maybe when I was real little.
It's
been at least a decade or so.
So back in the old timey days when I was about your age, VHS tapes were, all the hot thing. And I used to rent Jaws, or my mom would rent Jaws, and I used to pause the television pause the VCR so that on the TV there would be like the shaky screen of like the shark's head sticking out of the water, and I would put a piece of paper up on the TV, trace the shark, and then take that picture and practice drawing sharks. Like, I had no idea who Steven Spielberg was. I was just like, this is a movie about sharks.
Right.
And like, my mom can get it for me and I can trace the pictures. Not far after, obviously Jurassic Park came out, also Steven Spielberg, which I didn't know that at the time. So it wasn't until I was much older that I realized that, wow, Steven Spielberg has been ingraining his style into me subconsciously since as far as I could remember. Certainly Steve Irwin is another big one. And I did watch a lot of Steve growing up. but I was a little, I'd say on the older side of when Steve was at his zenith of popularity. The biggest shows that I watched when I was younger would have been like reruns of Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom. There's also a show called Wild America with Marty Stauffer, which I watched every Friday night. He was kind of like the original Planet Earth. Like he would go out, it was like all just like iconic films of animals, which were pretty astounding. And then when Steve Irwin came out, Steve Irwin and Jeff Corwin kind of came out at the same time, and I would watch them constantly. They both influenced me, but if they had come out when I was even like a little bit younger, I probably would have had like all the toys and everything like that. And beyond that, it became Bear Grylls. So when Bear, who's, I'm proud to say a business partner of mine and a friend of mine at this point, amazing individual, and similar to you, like I remember the first time that I made contact with Bear, and the very first magazine that I ever had with Bear on the cover, and I started reading and doing research, got all of his books, and I was like, man, like, this guy's amazing. And the more that I watched Man vs. Wild, I was like, the storytelling style, his ability to capture the camera and make you feel as if you're immersed in the environment with the fast editing style, the grippy music, the immersiveness into the environment is what I was like, man, when are we gonna do that with animals and not be killing and eating them? Because when Steve Irwin passed away in 2006, it was right in that window between 2006 and 2009 that Bear came onto the scene, which at the same time, I was looking at how do I combine all three of those things together. The Steven Spielberg of storytelling and filmmaking with the passion and conservation and education of Steve Irwin with the stylistic approach of Bear Grylls. And therefore, Brave Wilderness was born.
And I was just thinking, like, you said those are your three idols. You're like the perfect mixture of that. At least Brave Wilderness and you on camera. I feel like it's the perfect mix of all three of those people together.
And that's not accidental. Like everything that I've ever done my entire career, whether what's known publicly or all of the development before Brave Wilderness was a public brand, we were very carefully orchestrating every aspect of how we were going about this. And again, I think it's my degree in screenwriting, producing, and directing that gave me such a leg up when it came time to distribute content in the YouTube space. Because there's 5 years of development that myself and my business partner, Mark, who obviously also hosts content on the channel now, and I went through where it was like, this is not gonna happen. Like, how many years do you go of not getting paid to do something that you love, of having a day job, of having everybody tell you, yeah, this kind of doesn't work anymore, man. Like, Steve Irwin got killed by Stingray. Absolutely tragic. This is why people don't get close to animals. I mean, I had multiple big production companies tell me this, to be like, we love what you're doing, but there's no way that we're gonna roll the dice on like letting somebody else enter an environment with the risk of possibly getting killed. And I couldn't understand that. I'm like, well, how do you justify what Bear's doing? He's out there, he's jumping from airplanes and helicopters. Like, how is that any different than what Steve Irwin was doing? And people just couldn't see it. And at the time, there was also like this big push for there being like ensemble casts. That was like false drama being created. And they're like, yeah, this purist, like, hey, you love animals and you want to teach people about them. Networks weren't really having that for a while until we went out and did the YouTube thing. So 5 pretty difficult years of a lot of situations that presented themselves, looked like they could have been the right deal, ended up not being the right deal, because only the right deals ever work out and do you really learn something and gain from them. The wrong deals can be had, but then you might lose everything. We were very close a couple times to like basically losing everything. That being a lack of resources, that being signing the wrong contract where somebody would own the intellectual property that became our unique company structure. So yeah, a lot of craziness getting to this point.
Yeah, and something else I was wondering is, was there any point along the way, which you kind of answered a little bit, that you thought about throwing in the towel? That you thought about leaving it aside and maybe this isn't meant for you?
Yeah, I mean, there have been, I mean, in all honesty, such a candid interview, less than 6 months ago, I was very much questioning who I was, what I'm doing, how much longer am I going to go through bites and stings? What does the audience really want to see? Should I throw it in the towel and be like, let me find somebody else to replace me to be whoever's next? who is next? We don't know who's next. And I think I spent so much time early on in my career being like, I want to be next, because there's so few successful animal presenters out there. You can probably name them on two hands. If you go back and you start with Marlon Perkins, Jim Fowler, and David Attenborough, and like where they started when they were younger, and then you scale it all the way to somebody like you today, there are maybe 10 notable ones. I mean, I think you would have a hard time telling me 10 people who you feel have had successful entertainment/animal careers.
Yeah.
It is a very difficult world to balance both. They say that entertainment is about as difficult to get into as sports is, and then when you look at getting into the world of animals, it's even more difficult because of the lack of financial resources that exist there. And as we all know, to have a job and to make a living, you have to have some sort of financial resources.
Right. Moving on, so kind of upscaling the rise of Brave Wilderness, when was your I made it moment? When was the moment that you realized you'll never have to work a different job again if you don't want to?
That's a great question. I've never been asked that before. The moment where I felt I made it, I don't feel I'm there yet. In all honesty, like I am so focused on a daily basis to build this brand bigger, to scale this thing to a level that will become household recognition, the way Steven Spielberg did. And where I was saying that the idea of like, when did I make it? When did I have that moment? It hasn't happened yet for me. And that, I think, comes with having a love and a passion for what I do. Like, I don't need an alarm clock to wake up every day. I wake up every day thinking like, man, I get to go to work today, and basically my work is like being a kid, where I get to either play on a location, I get to be in interviews, I get to be on podcasts, I get to just envision. Like, my imagination has essentially come to fruition when it comes to the Brave Wilderness brand. And now my job, my biggest focus is how can I imagine something that is going to be bigger than anyone has ever seen before in the world of entertainment and animals, and how do you combine those things together while still doing an incredible good service for the planet. But you hit these benchmark moments and you think that something will change and be different with your life. And I've researched this a lot with other people that have been successful in entertainment. Jim Carrey is a great example of a guy who like struggled and struggled and struggled. And then when he first started getting his roles in movies, like he wrote down to himself, I'm gonna make, I think it was like $10 million. Like, I'm gonna make $10 million this year. And to like sort of set that stamp for himself to be like, I'm going to achieve this. And then for him to be able to mentally push himself, artistically push himself, and let his talents do the rest of the work, that he hit that number. And once he did, he was like, well, okay, what's next? And I think people that have a certain level of drive and ambition built within them, you're never going to reach that point that you're like, cool, that's it, I might retire now. I've had people ask me like, oh man, like, you know, when do you think you'll retire? I'm like, retire? I don't even know what that means. Right. I think retirement is for people who are in jobs that they don't necessarily like, when they've saved up enough financial resources to that when they invest that, they can just kind of like live off that piecemeal for the rest of their life. Which there's nothing wrong with that, don't get me wrong. But me personally, I don't think I have any interest in ever retiring.
And that kind of goes with the saying that if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life.
Yeah, pretty much. And there was a lot of work to get to what this point is. And it's not all sunshine and rainbows and blooming flowers all the time. I mean, the digital business is a struggle. Like, the YouTube system, the organism itself, wants its content creators to just keep putting fuel on the fire. And for anybody who's done anything in the YouTube space, you know how hard that is. To be like, I'm going to create one piece of content and put it out there to the world. That is an accomplishment unto its own. There is such a large percentage of people that have ideas that can talk about them, but can never put them on paper. To get them on paper is the first big step. Right. To take them from paper to actual footage is another huge obstacle, let alone to get that through a post-production process, to be happy enough that you're gonna release it, and then to have the courage to put it out in front of an audience.
Right. And this is why I kind of want to shine the light here early about maybe like some of the early struggles and how much work has gone into building Brave Wilderness as a brand, because there's a lot of people out there that'll just say, oh, you're so lucky, you blew up on YouTube, you're so lucky, you have the easiest job in the world, you just to go and make videos all day. But that's definitely not the case. There needs to be strive, there needs to be hard work, and I think the more that's put out there, the more people realize how hard it is to make it to the top.
Yeah, and it is, and it really becomes a war of attrition. Like, those who pace this like a marathon versus a race, I think, are the ones that will eventually make it. And for context, we spent 5 years, Mark and I spent 5 years developing what was to become Brave Wilderness, practicing our filming techniques, filming things, editing things, putting together sizzle reels, pitching projects. Nobody greenlighting things. First it was a TV show. Then we tried to do a documentary on polar bears. Then we tried to start our own food business. Like, we had like this whole Chipotle spin-off thing that was going to be like Japanese hibachi meets Chipotle. Like, we went hardcore into this for a couple of months because we're like, we're not going to make it in entertainment. We live in Columbus, Ohio. There's no industry for this year. Nobody wants to give us a chance. And like, we were like, we've got to make a choice to do something at some point. We knew we wanted to be successful. We just didn't think that we were going to make it. But we never gave up. And once we finally had the opportunity to launch, and the Brave Wilderness channel was born in 2014, it wasn't all like overnight you're making money. Like, we had day jobs. We were working 9 to 5, and every single opportunity that we had for our vacation time and weekends, we were using the money we were making from our day jobs to pay for our trips, to go travel and make YouTube content. For the first 2.5 years of Brave Wilderness, I was the one that edited every single video. Most people are probably like, oh, I remember Brave Wilderness in 2016, the cow killer episode or the bullet ant episode. Like, that explosion to viral success overnight for Brave Wilderness, could have never predicted that was going to happen.
Really. And it makes me gain so much respect for you and the whole team, hearing how much hard work and persistence went into building this brand and making it to where it's at today. And continuing that hard work day in and day out. I mean, you guys are, at 21 million subscribers, correct?
Yeah, just a little bit over that. Yeah.
21 million subscribers, and that same work ethic is still applied. And that's so impressive to me. So I feel like now is the perfect time to transition. I want to talk about the future of Brave Wilderness. So we just focused on so much of the past. And what would you say to someone that, okay, you're 10 years in now, you've done so many animals, so many different adventures, you've done so much of what's out there and big name animals and adventures. What's next? What is left to do? What does Brave Wilderness look like in the next decade?
Yeah, that's a good question. When it comes to filming animal content, like, there really is no limitation. Like, you could pick up an animal encyclopedia and open it up to some random page and point an animal on. I might be like, I don't even know what that is. Like, I get introduced to different animal species all the time. I'm like, I don't even know that was a thing. Somebody literally, when you were setting up for this, sent us an email about some wasp species and some entomologist that is studying this. I'm like, I've never even heard of this. And It's this weird looking wasp. They're calling it the king of wasps, and I'm like, okay. I'm not even sure it's a real animal versus like somebody made this up. So Mario's going to do research and confirm, well, is this a real thing? Is this something I can get stung by? So you never know what's going to be next when it comes to animal encounters. When it comes to where we're going with the Brave Wilderness brand, certainly now that we've established ourselves to where we're at, people take us a lot more seriously from a conservation perspective. Like, when Brave Wilderness took off and went viral, like 2016, 17, 18, people were like, oh, cool, get it. That guy that figured out that getting bitten and stung by things was gonna get a lot of people's attention. And it did, and it worked, but it was strategic because we knew that if we could build that up over here, we could also slowly start to build credibility when it came to doing conservation initiatives. So probably the stuff that we do that is the most important for us is more conservation centric. It just doesn't get as many views or as much notice because it's not me doing something crazy. People like to see me do things that are crazy versus me try to save wolves or rhinos or rainforests in Costa Rica. But for Brave Wilderness, the big mission is to figure out how to protect more wild places, how to get in front of protecting certain species that are being pushed to the verge of extinction. And a big part of it's also how to encourage the next generation of wildlife advocates and wildlife filmmakers, people like yourself. I mean, for you to be able to come here to Columbus, Ohio, to spend a few days with us working together, to us, that's extremely important. Like, you are the future. I can't do it forever. Like, there are other things that I want to go off and do in the world of animals that may not involve me being in front of the camera. The more people that are picking up the camera and spreading the message that Brave Wilderness kind of stumbled upon and started pushing out there to the world, for anybody influenced by what we are, who has the ability to pick up a camera and go out there and do this stuff, that is what we want to be encouraging. More people sharing the needs of animals with the world.
So, talking about the future here, and it's a perfect segue because you just brought up that someone sent in a new wasp species that you could potentially be stung by. How far are you going to take the bites and stings? Because it was so huge, especially like you said, 2016, 17, 18, and you've done so many of the big stings on the planet. What's the future of that like?
Well, it's interesting because, you know, there was the whole like, oh, I was going to retire from bites and stings after doing the execution wasp, which of course from a business perspective was a clever thing for us. We had a book surrounding, you know, the sting of the execution wasp called The King of Sting. And I was also getting ready to produce the big Animal Planet series, Brave the Wild, that we did for Animal Planet. And, you know, at the time, we could have never known that COVID was going to become a thing, because it was actually COVID that happened right as Brave the Wild was launching. So we were just incredibly fortunate to have filmed our first 18 episodes before COVID happened, because once COVID set in, us and the network were like, international animal show? Well, that can't keep going forward right now. Nobody can travel internationally, and nobody could for like 2.5 years. So we sort of dipped back into the YouTube space because you've got to keep the business going. People hear television show and they're like, oh my gosh, like, you guys must have just been uber rich overnight. You want to know where a television budget goes? To a gazillion other people that have to work on a television show. The profit margin on making a TV show versus YouTube, it ain't there. You spend all the money that's in a budget. I made less money, or our brand did, less money doing a TV show than we would have if we just consistently did YouTube the whole time.
That's something I never would have guessed.
Nope.
Which I'm sure most people, maybe even yourself before you went in and did the TV show, assumed as well.
Well, honestly, once Brave Wilderness started becoming popular, we were offered a lot of TV shows. So like that whole like, oh, no one would give us a show, all of a sudden it was that everybody wanted us to do a show. I talked to every network about, oh, we'll let you do this, oh, we'll let you do that. Animal Planet made the biggest promises, and we had the biggest opportunities with them, which is why we went that direction versus some other places that made offers to us. So to go back to your question about like, will the bites and stings ever end? Well, what we very quickly realized is that the audience really likes that content.
Right.
There's a big difference between knowing that you can step up to the plate, create a piece of content that's almost guaranteed to get at least 1 million views within a month, and then being like, or I could go catch frogs or more turtles and piecemeal in views. So there is a strategy to it. And how long will I continue doing bites and stings? We've kind of hit this threshold that's like, it's now becoming interesting to see how many more bites and stings can I take? One of the jokes behind the scenes that a lot of people ask, like, have you ever like donated blood to be like, is there something weird or different about your blood that's like changed from taking on all these venoms? I don't know. I don't think so. My immunity is pretty strong, I would say. But yeah, I don't know where it ends, and I don't think that it does. And that, honestly, going back to a question from a few minutes ago, when you were saying, oh, do like I ever struggle with where I'm at and who I am? I did reach that point about 9 years into this to be like, man, do I want to be that guy that gets bitten and stung by stuff? But then when you go out in public and you realize that that's what everybody loves, to abandon that is kind of like throwing water in the audience's face, to be like, if my body is capable of doing all of this, and I have the tolerance and the ability to still present while going through massive amounts of pain for people's entertainment and education, who am I to be like, I'm not gonna do that anymore, guys? So you lean into it, and you do it to the best of your ability, and you do it in a way that becomes sustainable for yourself, your brand, your audience, but then you use it to also help you get other places. And that has always been the vision with the bite and sting stuff.
And if we're talking about bite and stings, I see the book right here.
Oh yeah,
I feel
the
like
bites books.
I feel like we have to talk about Justin Schmidt though.
Yeah.
Who I know is someone that you definitely looked up to.
Oh yeah.
And you got to work with, fortunately, over the years of Brave
I was
Wilderness.
the last person to interview him before he passed away. This is my autographed copy from Justin Schmidt.
Wow. Show that to the camera.
Yeah. Justin Schmidt, official autograph. He gave this to me the first time that we worked together. They were filming a documentary on Justin and the stings that he went through, and I just happened to be in Arizona at the right time and got to be a part of that documentary. But Justin was an amazing individual, and I wish that I had spent even more time with him than I did. I mean, I would have never, the last time that I spent time with him, which was in 2022, you could have never told me that he was sick. I had no idea. And then when he passed away at the beginning of 2023, it was tough for everybody that loves Bugs and loves the work he did. And he's certainly, like, so when we go back to the Steven Spielberg analogy, you know, Steven Spielberg has taken all these books and turned them into movies. This is the book that became the roadmap for us creating the insect sting pain index through video versus reading it in this book. And the book is fascinating. It's an awesome, easy to read book. And it for us, you know, the filmmaker aspect of what we do is what allowed us to get to where we're at.
So now I have to ask a few questions that I know the audience is going to want to know. And that's your most painful experiences. So first of all, just stings.
Yeah.
What is, to this day, your most painful sting experience?
Well, sting experience is definitely the hand in a box full of yellow jackets. So there's a big difference between a single sting from something and like being stung over and over and over. There's also something different from being stung multiple times, let alone something latching onto you, inserting a stinger, and just pumping venom out of its abdomen like over and over and over.
Like when you did the bullet ant sting and it got stuck into your arm.
So I got more venom probably than normal. But yellow jacket venom is incredibly painful. And anybody out there are a lot of people who have been stung by yellow jackets. Not a lot of people have been stung by a lot of stuff I have been stung by. So when you think about having been stung by a yellow jacket and you're like, man, like, yeah, no, that does really hurt a lot. And then you think about, I took about 100 stings in 10 seconds. And it is without question the worst intentional sting experience I have been through.
And was that your video idea?
It was my idea. We always knew that we wanted to do something with a yellow jacket nest. But the problem is you can never just on the humble, like go out and be like, I'm going to find a yellow jacket nest today. And my good friend and wildlife expert, Tim Brust, had messaged me. He's like, Coyote, I found what I think may be the biggest yellow jacket nest I've ever come across. He's like, I marked it with a stake. If you ever want to come and film it, I know where it's at. And immediately I said to the team, I'm like, I think we got the opportunity to do a box episode. Because really what we wanted to see, how far will yellow jackets follow you once you disturb the nest? So that was part one of that experiment. I got stung like 20 times through my bee suit just with doing that, which was intense. But then to put my hand in the box full of them, yeah, it was a terrible idea. Like I regretted that so much in the 30 hours after. But you know, it makes for good storytelling.
Definitely does. And I remember watching the episode, you were struggling to get your hand out.
Yeah.
It was maybe just like a few seconds in that I think you realized like this was too much.
3 seconds and I tapped out. It's funny that the amount of nerves that are in your hand are really pretty extreme. So there's an episode that we're getting ready to release. It's in post-production right now. We just did an episode where I put my hand in a box full of leafcutter ants. And we did leafcutter ants in a box. We did leafcutter ants in their mound. And those things bite into you and they open you up so fast. And your fingers are so sensitive because of the nerves in them. Like, I had to like wave the white flag on the leafcutter ants when my hand was in the nest. So yeah, the stings of the yellow jackets, bites of leafcutter ants, it's all brutal.
So we covered most painful sting. How about most painful bite?
Intentional or unintentional?
We'll do both.
Both. So most painful unintentional bite is without question the Gila monster. And I would say the worst pain I have ever been in was the Gila monster. However, the pain from the Gila monster bite did not last as long as the yellow jackets. But the Gila monster venom, and keep this in mind, when I was accidentally bitten by a Gila monster in 2015, that lizard bit the side of my thumb. Like it lunged, it got my thumb and I pulled my thumb out of its mouth like that fast. And in that amount of time, we're talking less than a second if you were trying to stopwatch time it, its teeth sliced in and got enough venom in there that it was immediately searing pain. And I experienced that venom traveling all the way up my arm, all the way through the joints, up my shoulder, and into my chest.
How scary did that get when it started to travel into your chest?
It was scary. It was really scary right after the fact because I was a big time noob. Like I definitely, like this is before any of the intentional bites and stings. So this was like a full blown, oops, you're the idiot that got too close to a Gila monster and got bitten. We called all of our friends in the herpetology world to be like, is there anti-venom? Is there anything you should do? And everybody was like, no. Is he having an allergic reaction? No. He's gonna have to ride this out. So I literally for 9 hours was in excruciating pain. We're talking the kind of pain that like, because you can feel it moving, you're thinking, would it just be better to cut my arm off? Like it might be less painful to remove the arm rather than this continued to happen the way that it was happening.
Wow. And could you imagine if you took if he locked on to you, that Gila monster, and pumped you full of more venom?
I can't imagine how bad that would, like what kind of pain you would be in. There was a guy that actually died recently from a Gila monster bite, but I think he went into anaphylactic shock. And I don't know how much venom essentially ended up in his system, but with Gila monsters, they're not like a pit viper. They're not injecting venom, they're chewing venom in. So
right.
If one gets locked on you, like you're gonna be a world of pain.
Okay, so my next question is kind of more of a fun one, and that is, if you could only travel to one place for the rest of your life, whether it's for work or for leisure, what would that location be?
And am I there to live there permanently, or I'm just visiting and then I come back
Visiting,
home?
So it's the only place that you can visit.
Got it. I would definitely have to say the chain of islands in Indonesia where Komodo dragons live, whether that's Komodo National Park, which is like kind of the famous one, then there's Flores, and then there's one other island, which it's Rinca. Rinca is the other one. And so Flores and Rinca are the two islands that people do not really travel to see Komodo dragons. The lizards are a little more aggressive, a little leaner, and a little more dangerous. I think it would be cool to spend a significant amount of time like trying to survive in an environment where there literally are lizards, dinosaurs in a certain sense, that could be hunting you on a daily basis. I think I just personally would enjoy that challenge just on my own. I'm not even talking like with a film crew. I mean like just living amongst dragons for that amount of time. So yeah, it's definitely my number one bucket list item is to go and film and see Komodo dragons. And I think those islands would be magical.
Yeah, so I was going to ask anyways, what's your number one bucket list animal that you haven't crossed off yet? And would it be the Komodo dragon?
Yeah, Komodo dragons are definitely up there. I definitely want to film polar bears at some point in time. We're getting ready right now to finish a feature documentary film on grizzly bears and Kodiak brown bears. So I'll be in Alaska all the month of June filming Kodiak brown bears and living out in the wild amongst the bears. So that's going to be a super unique experience.
Definitely.
But yeah, really any opportunity to get out in nature and see apex predators is pretty cool.
So this whole interview, like I said at the beginning, has been such an honor. More than, I don't even know if you can fathom. And we've touched on some kind of serious topics, you know, the rise of Brave Wilderness, the start of Brave Wilderness, your personal journey. But now I kind of want to get into some more fun stuff.
Yeah.
So I kind of prepared some wacky questions.
I like wacky questions.
Feel free to dive into them as much as you want.
Okay.
Feel free to think about it. Some of them can be thinkers.
Okay.
Because, again, this is going to be on the internet. So if you're ready.
I'm ready. Let's go.
First of all, does pineapple belong on pizza?
I'm a big pineapple on pizza kind of guy.
Really?
One of my favorite pizzas is, I have not had Domino's pizza in years, but Domino's ham and pineapple pizza, when I was in high school, I was eating that all the time. I could eat a whole one of those pizzas by myself. Yeah, and I will eat pineapple with pepperoni, but ham and pineapple, one of my favorites.
I had pineapple on pizza once. It's not as bad as people make it out, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think it's decent.
I love it.
Okay, second, what's your favorite TV show of all time?
All-time favorite TV show is, without question, Lost.
Okay.
Do you know the show I'm talking about? It's probably before your time, but I have watched Lost in its entirety 3 times now.
Wow.
I've watched all of Lost 3 times. I've watched all of Game of Thrones twice. I've watched all of Mad Men twice. but Lost is the one that I've watched the most. So going through a series that I think it was 7 seasons, 3 times is quite a bit of content.
That is a lot, yeah.
Consumption.
And those
I consume a lot of content.
Those are longer episodes too.
Yeah, those are like hour-long episodes.
Yeah,
some of them are 2 hours, like for season finales.
Okay, so I know your favorite movie of all time is Jurassic Park, correct? What is, beside for Jurassic Park, your favorite movie?
I've got a handful of them. So Jurassic Park, I think overall was most influential. And if I had to pick like one movie to only ever watch again over and over again, it would probably be Jurassic Park. The original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie, the very first Turtles movie, one of my all-time favorites. I really like The Aviator with Leonardo DiCaprio. I really like Dumb and Dumber, probably my favorite comedy movie. I really like this movie called A Simple Plan with Billy Bob Thornton and Bill Paxton. I watch a lot of movies, so it's tough for me to ever be like this one. But Jaws is obviously up there. If it's a Steven Spielberg movie, I probably love it. I'm trying to think of something that I watched recently that I was like, oh man, that was really, really good. Nothing's coming to mind at the moment though. No, I actually did just see that movie, Sasquatch Sunset. Have you seen the previews for that?
I don't think so. No.
Oh man, it is. If you're looking for an interesting movie, it is about a family of Sasquatches, no dialogue, the entire movie. And you're just watching, just check it out. For anybody out there, Sasquatch Sunset, one of the most bizarre but like beautiful and innocent films you'll ever see.
Yeah, we'll have to check it out off camera.
Yeah.
Okay, comedy or horror movies?
Comedy movies.
Comedy movies. Is a hot dog a sandwich?
The hot dog debate. I got into this with somebody recently. I feel that a hot dog is a hot dog. Like, it's not a sandwich. It's only a sandwich if you put it between 2 pieces of bread. And I don't count buns or hoagies to be bread. Yes, I get that they're the same material as what bread would be, but a sandwich to me is 2 sliced pieces of bread.
Okay.
So if you were to take a hot dog and you were to slice it down the middle, like let's say you had 2 hot dogs, you sliced them both down the middle and you laid them flat on bread, then you'd be eating a hot dog sandwich. Otherwise, you're just eating a hot dog.
Okay, you're stuck on a stranded island, can only bring 3 items with you. What are those 3 items?
Hot dogs. No hot dogs. Definitely a knife. I feel like a knife is without question the most important thing you can have in any sort of situation because of everything that you can do with a knife once there. So a knife, wow, this is hard. This is a hard one.
It is tough. It's
3
tough.
things. Because I can think of some goofy things. So I think a knife, some sort of a container to catch water in, something that could hold some substance.
Right. Maybe a volleyball named Wilson?
I mean, a Wilson would not be bad.
Yeah, you wouldn't get lonely.
You wouldn't get lonely if you had Wilson, but I'd probably just make a Wilson out of a coconut or something like that. So I'll say a knife, a container to hold water, and my cowboy hat.
Okay. What's your favorite food?
Barbecue ribs.
Barbecue ribs.
Yeah,
okay,
barbecue
so you
ribs,
should come to Kansas City, then. Home of barbecue.
I love me some barbecue.
Can you do 50 push-ups?
I 100% can do 50 push-ups.
In one setting?
I did 50 push-ups the other day in 60 seconds. We were doing survival first aid training, and the book says it labeled like these different categories for doing sit-ups and push-ups. And apparently like the category of like needs work for sit-ups was like 30 sit-ups in 60 seconds. I'm like, 30 sit-ups for anybody's pretty tough. And then for the push-ups, it was like 50 push-ups in less than a minute. And I'm like, that sounds really difficult for anybody to do.
Right.
And I did it in under 60 seconds. So.
There's only one way to prove it.
I mean, if you really want me to, I'm happy to do 50 push-ups for you.
No,
when we're done filming this,
we can have a push-up competition.
You can do a timer instead of for 60 seconds. I'll do 50 push-ups in 60 seconds.
Okay, so...
And then I'll still go to the gym today.
Okay, what's your favorite land and ocean animal?
Favorite land animal all time is common snapping turtle. Like through and through, common snapping turtle, that's the one. Sometimes I also answer Wolverine because I do love Wolverines, but like I would not be who I am today if it was not for the snapping turtle. My favorite ocean animal is without question the great white shark.
Awesome. Have you? You haven't been in the water with white sharks, have you?
I've not done anything. Mark has done a great white shark episode in Guadalupe.
Episode.
I have not. We have a Shark Week project that's been in development for a couple of years now.
Wow.
That may or may not come to fruition. We're actually waiting for a company to build. We're going to actually... Everyone's like, you would never get bit by a shark. Not a great white shark, but there is a company that is building something that's supposed to be completely shark bite resistance that we're going to try out on a bull shark, a smaller bull shark. But we were going to do Shark Week episode like special that features great white sharks, tiger sharks, and bull sharks, and ultimately ranking which one of these is truly the world's most dangerous shark.
That is crazy.
Yeah. Don't worry, I will never be intentionally bitten by a great white shark, but
I would hope not.
We are going to set up some tests to find out, what is the potential bite strength and what sort of damage does great white shark do.
That's fascinating and crazy at the same time.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is probably maybe the biggest question of the whole day.
Okay.
Who is your current favorite 20-year-old YouTuber?
Current favorite 20-year-old YouTuber. I do watch this one guy that he does a lot of diving stuff. He's into snapping turtles. One time he even put a GoPro on a snapping turtle.
I heard he did it multiple times too.
I heard he kind of like tried to do it in Ohio once, but there's a bunch of plants in the water and like he only kind of got some footage with the turtle cancers. I think his name is Ben Fuller or Ray
Okay.
Tiller.
There we
You ever
go.
heard of him?
That's me.
That.
That's me.
Now I'm blushing.
What is your go-to camera? I guess you can also answer it as your favorite camera, but what's your go-to camera?
Right now, one of the cameras that we've been most fascinated and infatuated with is the DJI Osmo Pocket 3.
Yeah.
And that thing is crazy awesome.
They really are awesome. We were just out there using them today, and I mean, they're so useful out in the field.
Yeah, I think they've got a 1-inch sensor on them.
Do they really?
Yeah,
Wow.
so it's really impressive in low light.
So it's really got a leg up on GoPro then.
I would say at this point, yes, but it's not an action camera. It's more of a, all right, if your camera team wants to get stuff gritty, run and gun, get something in the moment, literally flip the screen and it's on and you're ready to record. So it's not going to get you the quality that a lot of the other better cameras, like right now we've been using the FX6 and the A7S III. Those are sort of our main go-to cameras. But the Osmo Pocket has been a very interesting addition to our repertoire as of this year.
Nice. Okay, I have one final question. Do you have any secret talents?
Secret talents. I probably have a slew of them. I don't know how secret they are. I guess I'm okay talented at basketball. I wouldn't say I'm fantastic, but for somebody my height, my age, I'd say I'm pretty good at basketball. I'm a lot better at basketball than people think I would be. And then when they're like, wait, you're 42 years old and like I play like 20-year-olds in basketball. So that I think is like my talent that I'm proud of. But I think probably my biggest hidden talent, which is not that hidden anymore, is that I can really talk like Smeagol and Gollum and keep like a narrative going back and forth between the two of them.
Well,
yeah.
Can we get a little glimpse right here though?
Sure, let me let me wet my whistle here. So the key to Smeagol and Gollum is like you've got to be, Smeagol is the sweet side, Gollum is the nasty side.
Right.
So
Precious, Julius, love, when is it gonna be time for us to, where are we gonna go look for someone? Stop it! You stink, Smeagol. You're just nothing but that. Not me, Precious. We're just so looking for some turtles. Yes, turtles, Precious. Stop it! Adam.
yeah, so I can keep
That's
going.
uncanny.
And going. Yeah.
That's really good.
If I have like a Jolly Rancher and really get like that kind of like sticky-ish saliva, because to get that really good high pitched and then the really deep, you've got to have like a lot of saliva going. I don't have a lot right now because we've been talking so much, but yeah, I'm pretty good at doing the Smeagol Gollum thing. Yeah.
And when he started doing the voice, I could hear some people laughing
Yeah.
in the background here at the office. All right, well, gosh, we've been talking for like 45 minutes.
Yeah, it's a good interview.
It has been going on for a while, but I've run out of my questions. We've hit on everything that I wanted to hit, plus some more. And like I've been reiterating over and over, it's such an honor to be able to sit here with you and not only do this interview, but spend these couple of days together catching snapping turtles of all animals together and just kind of getting this whole experience. Like, it really is a dream come true, and thank you so much for taking part of this interview.
Dude, my pleasure. And now when we hop from this, I'll do 50 push-ups in 60 seconds. Let's see if that could be like your end credits scene.
Yeah, we'll see if he can actually do it.
Coyote doing push-ups.
All right, guys, thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next adventure. Okay, so can Coyote Peterson do 50 push-ups in 60 seconds? Ready?
Yep.
3, 2, 1. 1, 2, 3, 4. 38, 39, 40. It's getting tired, folks. 41, 42, 43, 44, 45. Oh, we're getting close. 46, 47, 48. 2 more. 49, 50. With 57 seconds as the official time. So can Coyote Peterson do 50 push-ups in 60 seconds?
Yes,
he was not lying on camera.
Woo!